a subscription to a lie that most men were too embarrassed to cancel. Chapter 3: The Cost of Admission. Ellie Price lived in Michigan, far from the neon-lit boardrooms of Cincinnati, but she was about to become a casualty of the smiling shadow. In 1995, her life had been bifurcated by a medical necessity, a hysterectomy, that left her feeling like a stranger in her own skin. Her husband, Bob a different Bob, one who didn't smile like the man on TV, tried to be supportive. "It's okay, Ellie. We'll figure it out." But then came the radio ad for Avlamil. It promised a restoration of libido, a return to the vibrant woman she used to be. It was the female counterpart to Enzyte, a pink-hued promise of intimacy. "I just wanted to feel normal again," Ellie would later tell the investigators, her voice trembling. She ordered the sample pack. She gave her debit card for the shipping and handling. A mere few dollars. She didn't realize she was signing a contract with a ghost. The pills arrived, and they did nothing. No spark returned. No fog lifted. But the next month, another package arrived, and $30 vanished from their bank account. "I didn't order this," Ellie told the customer service rep. "It's part of the program. Ma'am, you have to call to cancel." "I am calling to cancel. I'll put that through. It takes 3 to 4 weeks to process." The next month, the charge was there again. And the month after that. The Michael Johnson of the customer service department, a man who didn't exist, a name used to shield the company from accountability, became a recurring nightmare in the Price household. Bob Price watched his wife cry over the bank statements. He took the phone from her one afternoon, his knuckles white. "Listen to me," he shouted into the receiver. "Stop sending the product. Stop taking our money. Sir, to process a refund for a sexual enhancement product, we require a notarized letter from a physician stating that the treatment was ineffective." The absurdity was the point. Who would go to their family doctor, pay for a consultation, and ask for a notarized document stating their sex life hadn't improved? The shame was Stephen Warshak's greatest asset. He was counting on the silence of the swindled. Chapter 4: The Harvard Man. While Stephen Warshak was building an empire on the insecurities of the bedroom, another man was building one on the insecurities of the boardroom. Kirk Wright didn't look like a con artist. He looked like the American dream with an Ivy League pedigree. Raised in the Bronx, he had the hunger of the streets, tempered by the polish of Harvard. A car accident in his youth had provided a settlement as seed of capital that he grew with a cold, analytical precision. By the time he arrived in Atlanta, the southern boomtown, Kirk was a superstar. He founded International Management Associates (IMA), a hedge fund that promised the kind of returns that made even the most seasoned investors' eyes water. 20%, he would say, leaning back in his leather chair, the Atlanta skyline reflected in his glasses. "It's not magic. It's a secret recipe. Most people play the market like a game of chance. I play it like a game of chess." In Atlanta, status was everything. Kirk didn't just have clients, he had disciples. Two anesthesiologists, looking to diversify their wealth, became his primary scouts. They brought in the elite, the young professionals of the city who saw in Kirk a reflection of their own success. But the most prized fish in Kirk's barrel were the heroes, retired NFL players, men like Steve Atwater, who had spent their lives being tackled for a gain and were now looking for a way to protect the fortunes they had bled for. Kirk treated them like royalty. He flew them to games, hosted them at the Georgia Dome, and spoke their language. He wasn't just a manager, he was a teammate. You took care of the defense on the field. Steve, Kirk said during a private dinner, "Let me handle the defense for your family's future." Atwater invested. Others followed. Millions of dollars flowed into EMA, and for a while, the statements reflected the dream. Like Warshak's and Zeit, the secret recipe was nothing more than a chemical imbalance of truth. Kirk wasn't trading stocks. He was trading on his reputation. The luxury cars, the Bentley, the Jaguar, the Lamborghini weren't the fruits of his labor. They were the bait. Chapter 5. The $200 million error. Back in Cincinnati, the walls were beginning to close in on Stephen Warshak. It was 2003, and Berkeley Premium Nutraceuticals was bringing in nearly $250 million. Stephen was living in a world of pure arrogance. He believed he was untouchable because he was providing a service, but the Better Business Bureau had a file on him that was growing faster than his revenue. Thousands of complaints. Stories of elderly men being billed hundreds of dollars they didn't have. Stories of women like Ellie Price, trapped in a cycle of unauthorized withdrawals. The U.S. Postal Inspection Service, the FBI, and the IRS began to coordinate. They weren't looking at the efficacy of the pills that was a matter for the FDA. They were looking at the money. Stephen's defense, articulated through a phalanx of high-priced lawyers, was a masterpiece of gaslighting. We grew too fast, they claimed. These aren't crimes, they're growing pains. A few clerical errors in a $200 million company. But the emails told a different story. The student has become the teacher. Stephen had written in response to his nephew's suggestion to scam customers by pretending to be a hospital. Our company was built on this kind of creative thinking. In January 2008, the trial began. The smiling shadow was finally dragged into the light of a federal courtroom. Stephen sat there, his smile gone, replaced by a mask of cold defiance. He watched as his own employees testified against him. He watched as the emails were projected onto a screen, digital ghosts of his own greed. "I don't think you accidentally start ripping people off," one prosecutor noted, looking directly at Stephen. "You don't accidentally take a card from grandma's purse." The jury didn't buy the growing pains defense. They saw a man who had weaponized embarrassment to build a fortune. Judge Arthur Spiegel didn't hold back. "You preyed on their insecurities," the judge said, his voice echoing in the silent chamber. You took more than their money. You took their dignity. Stephen Warshak was ordered to pay $494 million in forfeiture. He was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. The man who had sold the world a smile would spend the next to